Hi everybody. Today we're going to start talking about statistics and practicing statistics, which is different from probability. All right, so statistics, this is the science of, and we're going to talk about three main characteristics of it. One is collecting data. All right, so we'll talk about how to collect good data. Once we have that data, we'll talk about organizing it and summarizing it. And lastly, we're going to use that data, we're going to analyze it. So analyzing to draw conclusions. Specifically about the population, which I'm going to talk about now. So we're going to start our discussion out by with a research question and a method for trying to answer that question. All right, so a school wants to measure the morality of the school. So they got to come up with a measure. And this is what they are going to use as their measure. They're going to say the proportion of students who would say that they would return rather than keep $100 someone dropped. So to estimate this proportion, they're going to ask 50 students what they would do. So the proportion of those 50 students we think is going to be close to the proportion of the whole school that we really want to know. So the population in statistic is the entire group of individuals that we're interested in, so of interest. All right, so above, in our example above, the population is the school. And when they mean the school, they mean all the students at that school. So not all the students in the world, but that all the students that are at that school. They want to know what proportion would say that they would return $100 rather than keep it. A parameter, this is easy for me to say. This is a numerical summary of the population. All right, so an example here, all right, so would be what we're interested in is this proportion. A proportion is a number. By the way, probabilities are proportions, all right, it's a number. So for this example, this would be the proportion of, and since it's describing the population, a parameter is the proportion of my population. So the proportion of all the students. Who would return the money? They would return that $100. All right, my sample, this is the individuals that we have data for. All right, so an example here would be, okay, I'm going to have these 50 students. Once I finish taking that, that survey of those 50 students, the 50 students is going to be my sample. Then a statistic is also numerical, but it is a numerical calculation. from my data. So an example here, once I get done asking the students what they would do, a good summary statistic would be the proportion of, now of who? Of the statistics measure the sample. So statistic comes from my data, which is the sample. Let's say this here. This is the data. So the sample and the data are kind of the same thing. So it's the proportion of the 50 students who said they would return the money. And the way I would get this is I would calculate it. I'd say, okay, this would be the number of students who said they returned over the 50 students. So it's a proportion is a count over a total count. So it's the count of those who said they would return it over the 50 students they asked. So that is a calculation. Here, this parameter, which is a measurement of the population, in this particular situation, I don't even know what it is. So I don't know, I can't, you know, I don't know what proportion, this proportion. The whole purpose of this sample of these 50 students is to let me know what this parameter looks like.